Hi everyone, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. My name is Pip, and if you haven't been here before, welcome to my garden. We have dealt with this garden bed a lot recently. We actually planted this up together recently, and I was very proud of my leeks that were doing so well. And then things happened. I've been blaming bandicoots for little digging patches in the garden beds, and I would like to issue a formal public apology to the bandicoots because it's not their fault. They're responsible for maybe 5% plus stealing my seeds whenever I sow them. Of that, they're still guilty. But this is blackbirds. I saw a whole family out here 2 days ago, and initially I was like, oh, they're so cute. And then I watched what they did. They're coming in here and they're scratching and they're chucking mulch everywhere. They're doing it in containers. They particularly love this garden bed, I think, because there's less obstacles that make it difficult for them to land. They're ripping out my leeks. They've pulled up some broccolis. They're covering everything in mulch. I'm pretty cranky about it because they have caused so much destruction in just a couple of days. All along here, along the privacy trees, I spent ages putting in a particular type of mulch that's name I hate, called who-flung dung, and it is really great for hydrophobic soils, and the soil there was hydrophobic, and so I spent ages putting it in and making sure everything was beautiful so that that soil could recover. And every day I was like, stupid bandicoots keep kicking the mulch everywhere. It's the blackbirds. So last night I rage researched what we need to do about these stupid blackbirds. And the thing is, I don't want to deter all the birds because lately we've had a massive influx of like little finches and wrens along with our willy wagtails, and I love them. They're cute and they eat the bugs on the plants, so they can stay. But the blackbirds can go somewhere else immediately. So what I discovered with the rage research was that you need to make it difficult for them to land. People were talking about things like putting sticks in the ground so that you're making it harder for them to land. There were a couple of people that talked about burying garden stakes upside down, so stabby side up, as effective methods, and I was thinking, I'm going to trip over that and impale myself. But it did make me think of kebab skewers as a possible alternative option. But what we're going to do is we're going to temporarily net this up, and we're going to try and remove their food sources. And the other option for deterring them, apparently they don't like sparkly things, so is to get some of the it's kind of like aluminium tape that you can tie around trees and stuff so it blows in the breeze and freaks them out. My main strategy in the last 2 days has been this beautiful girl. Okay, she's now sitting on my leeks, but it's her garden too. And I am very pro everyone has to eat. So I don't want to eliminate all the bugs, but my little hunters, Raffy, go get him. Buddy, go get him. Get him. Good girl, you find him. Has been very effective. Good girl, where's that bird? You get him. Go get him. But as you can see, I don't want to encourage this frantic energy at all times because Birdie is a reactive dog. She's been through an awful lot. This guy tends to calm down more because he hasn't actually worked out what we're chasing yet so much, whereas she incidentally took the right track, saw the bird take off, and so I was able to give her positive reinforcement for that. So I don't want to encourage the madness because I don't want her out here barking all the time, but so far it's been my only option these last 2 days, and it has been very effective, but it does mean I have to send her out here constantly. The blackbirds have made a mess in the zinnias. They have made a mess of this garden. All of my beautiful blue cornflowers had germinated and they have been dug up and they toss dirt everywhere. It's just so maddening. So we're going to try and protect this bed again. We're going to re-sow the cornflowers, but we're also going to try and remove the food source. So I'm actually seriously thinking about ripping out every single tomato plant, but we're definitely going to be removing all of the blackberries so that there's nothing left. All of the blackberries that are ripe are infected with fruit fly, and there's quite a pungent fermented smell. And yeah, so we need to do some garden bed protection from I want to say horse and hound, but no, from a dog and bird. And yeah, we need to do that immediately. The other thing is my dad is in town, which means he has the trailer, which means we need to do a tip run. So we are cutting out anything that's vaguely diseased, that's not going to go into the compost, and it's going to go in the trailer and go in the tip, because we don't have a green bin pickup here. So it either has to go in the regular garbage bin, or you can do a green drop off at the tip. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do plant protection, and you are a nightmare. Ow! And we're going to do cleanup. Give me the ball, man. How are these plants ever supposed to survive, Rafi? So the first thing I'm going to do is jam in a few more leeks. So as we clear things out, we're going to be planting more, hopefully. That's the plan. It's very overcast today, so I don't know if it's going to rain. So if the shooting just suddenly stops out of nowhere, that's what happened. But if it does stop suddenly out of nowhere, then I'm going to go into town, go to the hardware store and get some of that reflective bird tape and tie it on everything. So these blackbirds are now my arch nemesis, and they will be defeated. Hopefully you can hear on the microphone all the other little local birds chirping in the background. We've just had a massive influx of birds. They have a thing for this bed, and I know it's because the soil is more exposed and it means they can dig up and find the worms, but they're my worms. So annoyed with these stupid blackbirds. If they weren't so destructive, I'd be down with them staying, but I got no broccoli, no cauliflower, nothing but a few snow peas and beans last cool season. Be damned if I'm letting that happen again this season because of blackbirds. The other thing I'm doing as I'm going around this bed is checking the brassicas for any cabbage moth eggs. They were the thing I was most concerned about attacking my brassicas, but so far the damage has been extremely minimal, for which I'm thankful. And I just don't want to enclose cabbage moth grubs in here and then have them all mature and just decimate the brassicas in here. So I figure, seeing I'm planting extras and we're fighting against a nemesis, we need to just jam leeks in wherever we can, check the brassicas, get everybody covered up and protected, and just do what we can. One of you guys asked in the comments about how I irrigate my garden. This is how. I would love to have an irrigation system, but I don't, because I can't be bothered to work out how I would do that with a raised garden bed, and I can't afford to have someone else do it for me. So I have oyas in a lot of the beds. Some of them are commercial oyas, and a lot of them are actually oyas that I made. The ones I made are not as fabulous. They're supposed to be unglazed terracotta. Where I bought them from said it was unglazed terracotta. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. Some of them work much better than others, but they do work on a piping hot day, whereas the commercial oyas, they just seep water out through the terracotta all the time, and essentially what they are is a large unglazed terracotta pot that you fill with water, and in theory then the non-root crop plants, so non-carrots, non-beets, not potatoes, not things like that, but everything else will then send their roots towards the water, and they kind of wrap around the pot and they absorb then what they need. Most of the pots I have in this garden are about 3 litres. I have some 6 litre ones. I prefer those because you obviously don't have to fill them up as often, whereas the 3 litre ones in summer here only really last maybe 2 days. Whereas the 6 litre ones you can probably get away for about a week, but the commercial ones are quite expensive. Like the 3 litre ones I think are like $50, and the 6 litre ones are like $85. It's just crazy. Whereas if you make your own ones, it's about $5. So I need to make some more and distribute them more, but I've got to actually find the ones in this garden bed. They've been covered by the blackbirds. So I do fill these up when I'm going around, especially before I go away. But other than that, it's just hose, and I try and do a deep water maybe once a week, depends on the weather. Couple of times a week if it's really hot. If I've just got new seedlings or new seeds, I will go every day for about a week or so. If it's carrots, every day till they germinate, and then I start to go every second day. But beyond that, that's how I irrigate. I have tried weeper hoses and stuff like that, but with a garden bed set up like this, it's a bit difficult, and I find that weeper hoses are fairly ineffective. In terms of fertilizing, I literally just do blood and bone, which is like a powder, and a slow release veggie mix from Osmocote when I'm planting, and that's it. If I remember, they get some worm wee occasionally, or some worm castings from the worm farm that we have. I usually remember after the rain and after the worm bin is overflowing. It just is what it is. In terms of other fertilizers, it doesn't really happen. Plant maintenance, so it depends. For example, yesterday I was out the front and I hedged my lily pillies, and I fertilized them because I was already there, and I put they get this, I can't remember how to say them, bacillus or something, these little bugs that create bubbles on the leaves, and so every so often I put like this pesticide powder around the bottom of them, and there's probably not the great time to edge lily pillies as they're just putting on new growth, but the reason they got edged yesterday was because I have my dad's hedger for another 2 days, so everything gets done when it's getting done, and it got fertilized because I was already there. So very fast and loose with the rules. I just do it when I have time. If I'm already there, I will try and do all the things all in one go, so I don't have to come back and do something else later, especially if I have to move mulch to like do anything around the roots, like fertilize, or in the lily pilly case, pesticide. But other than that, it's as low maintenance as humanly possible until the blackbirds arrive. Then it's maximum maintenance. So let's get on with that maximum maintenance, hey? While we were putting the protective layer up on that garden bed we were just working on, I saw 3 juvenile and 1 mature blackbird in here scratching around. Now, we recently planted all of this up. They'll easily dislodge these seedlings, and it's more wasted mulch if they just keep chucking it everywhere. So we need to do something to protect this area as well, and because I really want my sweet peas to actually turn out this year, I'm like, quick, save the sweet peas. And the thing is, I don't want to cover everything. That area where we've got to replant the cornflowers is a pollinator bed, and if I cover that like we just covered that last garden bed, the pollinators aren't going to be able to do anything. With brassicas, that's fine, but with these flowers, I mean, the whole point is let's support our pollinators as we go into the cooler weather. So in the shed, I have these. These I bought 4 or 5, 6, maybe a decade years ago from Bunnings. So I don't know if you can still get them, but they're like a little garden edging fencing thing. And seeing as I already have them, I'm going to use them. I'm trying to focus on just using what I already have in the shed, but I will go and get some reflective tape next time I'm in town. And I'm just going to line the garden beds with these. Now, in theory, the bird could still pop through this little gap, but at least it makes it a little bit harder. So I can then keep an eye on this area, and if I have to, I can put some mesh across here, or, ooh, native bee, hello. Or maybe I can put some reflective tape off here. And side benefit is, as the amaranth hopefully grow into big bushy plants, this will give some control and stop them flopping over into the pathway, but at least we're using what we have and trying to stop these silly blackbirds from ruining everything we've been working on. And this would be a perfect spot to use the stick method and put a whole bunch of sticks in the ground so that they can't actually land here to scratch around. The only thing is, this is, well, Rafa goes everywhere, but this is an alley that the dogs run up and down quite a lot, and Rafa, oh, he loves sticks. Loves them with a fiery passion that will never burn out. And he would think I had created a stick library for him, which I would love to do because it's really cute. But he would come through here and just rip them all out straight away. So it needs to be something Rafa-proof as well. In a little twist of luck, these fit like literally perfectly in the garden bed, and on the ends I'm going to put a different panel, and then we're going to go down and do the exact same thing on a bed of zinnias that they seem to be wanting to nest almost around the bottom. They're always in there, and we've got to plant up some other seedlings in there, so we need to get these blackbirds out of the garden. As it happened, I had already put these little fencing panels in when I planted up the zinnias to try and stop them from flopping over in our wind. They had tipped a little, so all I did was straighten them up, and then I added more panels around the edges because it's around the corners that the blackbirds have been getting in and getting underneath the zinnias and kicking around in here. Then once I'd done that, it was time to move onto our recently planted pollinator bed, where I re-sowed the cornflower seeds and finally got round to adding some mulch onto the surface. The mulch is also going to help me determine whether the blackbirds have been able to bypass our new security measures. Once I'd used the landscape staples and the chicken wire to try and protect the plants as best I could, I then decided to add a couple of sticks just around the edges where the wire didn't quite stop the birds from landing. Hopefully this will be enough. It's obviously not going to stop bandicoots from coming in and digging around, but at least it's making life a little bit harder for everybody, and the seedlings should be able to grow through the chicken wire. Then it was on to cleanup duties, and the Munstead David Austin rose was as lethal as ever. I wanted to deadhead the roses. I've been meaning to do it for a while. This area in the orchard and around the blackberries has needed work for a while, but I haven't wanted to wander in here and accidentally tread on a watermelon and ruin our amazing first watermelon harvest. But at some point I'm gonna need to do a little bit more work around here. One of the main things though was to tidy up the blackberries, which eternally put on a ton of growth every 5 minutes. The first thing I did was remove all the berries and all the bags that I could see. The bags went into the washing machine to try and clean them for next season once I'd shaken out as much of the fermenting berries as I possibly could, and then any rogue canes were cut off. Some had actually embedded themselves into the colorbond fence in their quest to get next door, which was a little bit concerning, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more on top of it. And the rest of the canes I tried to secure up and away from the ground as much as possible and just tidy up as best I can. The problem with the blackberries is that anywhere where they touch the ground, if left there for long enough, they will immediately start rooting in quite vigorously, and then before you know it, you've got a pest on your hands. While I was cleaning out things that needed to go to the tip, I decided to add the Blue Lake climbing bean to that list. It has been a massively productive plant, and you can see there's still a ton of beans on it, but the plant is covered in rust and covered in a kind of strange stink bug that is biting the beans. And as the plant has got towards the end of the season now, even new beans, even young beans, kind of have a weird leathery texture to them, and they're kind of rubbery. So it was time to get rid of them and make sure no seed and no rust ended up in the compost. We have most of our temporary blackbird protections in place, and when we went to the tip we stopped by the hardware store and picked up a couple of rolls of scare tape, which is this reflective tape. The idea being that if you get a little bit of wind, that it moves the tape around, which creates a visual disturbance for the bird and freaks them out and they move along. All of the birds have been digging quite a lot in these pots, and some of that is because I recently took out the lavender that was in here, and I've left the roots into compost in place, and I topped with a tiny little bit of compost which would have had worms in it. So this one is my Jonathan dwarf apple tree, and my other one is a dwarf red Fuji, and they've just been going mental in the bottom of the apple trees. So we'll put some tape around the bottom of these ones, and then we will head down to the privacy pittosporum trees, or pittosporums, and I will tape some tape there because they have been scratching the mulch away something terrible around there. And basically all the pine bark mulch is broken down, so I replaced it with the hoof-lung dung mulch, and they've kicked all of that off, and then that's all broken down quite quickly in the pavement. So it's really annoying, and I've got to remulch in there, but I won't remulch until I see if this works. But we did pick up some mulch while we were at the hardware store as well. What I'm going to do with this bed is top it with a bit of our homemade compost. Now this is mostly, well not mostly, but there's a significant portion of this that is actually made up of autumn leaves from my parents' house that came down at the end of last season. So by topping our beds with last season's leaf mold, essentially, we're adding a ton of nutrients to the ground. What we're going to be putting in here is brassicas, and brassicas are heavy feeders, so they're going to love that this bed is going to be top dressed with some organic matter. And I'm going to put a decent thick layer on. We do have most of the roots of the beans that were in here that I've left in place to compost, and what that will do is add nitrogen to the soil. The beans and things like that, legumes, are nitrogen fixers if you let the root compost in place. So that's what we're going to do. Now I don't perfectly filter out my compost. There's still chunks and stuff in here. That's fine. It's mostly broken down. I'm not too worried. The little chunks of stuff, either the blackbirds will kick away or the worms will continue to work on, and it will continue to break down and add nutrients to the soil, so that's fine. So what I'm going to do is just top dress this entire bed to get it ready for planting. We've still got this frame in place. Now often by the end of a summer season, because whatever has grown on these has been battered by the wind a fair bit, they're often quite wobbly and in need of resetting essentially, but this one's quite sturdy. It's not straight, but it's sturdy. So what I'm thinking is that we're going to put some brassicas in here and obviously put some bird protection over the top, and we are going to grow some what are they called? Sweet peas up here, and hopefully that will put a nice colourful bloom on above the brassicas and make use of everything that we've already got in place in this garden bed. But we're definitely going to be putting, I think, the wire topping over the brassica seedlings just to protect them from the birds. But I don't want this video to be entirely about my newfound hatred for blackbirds, so we're definitely going to be planting up and adding some beautiful seedlings to the ground. And we also have a lot of seedlings that really need to get into the garden beds or into the ground because they're well and truly outgrowing their seedling trays. So let's get to planting. I wasn't able to put as much compost on the topsoil as I'd like to because I don't have a lot of compost, and I've got a lot of garden beds, and it's got to go around a little bit to all the beds. The more compost I add over time into these garden beds, the more water holding capacity the soil will actually have because of all the organic matter. So that is a goal of mine, to add more and more to the soil each passing year. And I mean, there are ways to facilitate a faster breakdown of your compost. So if you've ever seen the Weedy Gardener, he's an Australian gardener who has this amazing method where he breaks down his compost in, I think it's like 21 days, and it's amazing. I just, mosquito, don't have the amount of plant matter to create compost every 21 days. So, I mean, maybe as this garden develops, there'll be more to like chop and drop and things like that. But at this point, I don't. So what I'm putting in, and I'm going to pop alternating on each side so that the galvanized panel can actually control the growth a little bit. I've got some Italian sprouting broccoli. They are looking worse for wear. There is a little bit of leaf miner damage. I just pulled a cabbage moth caterpillar off one. Some of them have aphids, so I'll need to soap water spray them in a minute. It's just all the pests today. And we've got some Painted Lady and Lord Nelson sweet peas to go in. So I've put in some slow release fertilizer and some blood and bone, which is a faster release, and I'm just going to be alternating sides that I'm planting just to kind of use this, as I said, to facilitate a bit of space between the plants, and hopefully they'll be happy in this smaller bed with this topped up soil, and hopefully no blackbirds. You might wonder why I'm putting in seedlings that are already compromised or leggy or scraggly looking, and the truth is that last season we didn't get any cool season crops really, apart from beans and peas and stuff like that. So I am dead keen to make sure that that doesn't happen again this season. And they are leggy because we had a couple of 40-degree days that I wasn't expecting after these had already germinated. And I should have been expecting them because this is Australia and it's summer and March is often hot. Not that it's March yet, but I should have expected them. But I was just so keen to make sure that we got some brassicas this year that I planted them early just in case it didn't work out. But after last year where I planted brassicas that were literally this big, and they turned into beautiful plants, I'm just of the opinion, just let it go, let nature do its thing and see what happens. If it's too bad, I won't put it in. I will spray these for aphids, because if they've already got aphids, I don't want this to just turn into a mess of aphids. But there's not a ton of aphids, and the soap water spray will clean this up quite nicely. But I just figure I might as well put them in. Worst case scenario, because we are planting a little bit early for the cool season crops, if they don't look healthy in a couple of days after some spray and stuff like that, I can always pull them and replace them after I've sowed some more. So just pop them in and see how they do. In terms of irrigation, this bed has 2 homemade Oya pots. So they don't have the best record, these particular 2, so I do tend to watch this bed quite closely, which is fine. But again, hopefully as the compost builds in this soil, it will hold more moisture. I am going to water and then mulch, and then I'll water again. The thing I've got to get better at with the overhead watering is really more about mulching. So I need to remember that when I plant seedlings, they're tiny, and so usually I plant it so that the mulch is right around the base of the seedling, but then as the plant gets bigger, it actually needs a wider berth with the mulch so that water can actually get through the mulch and into the soil. So that's something I'm trying to remember today as I plant these, but I'm just happy to be getting something in the ground. Even though I've got a patch here behind the zinnias that would be an amazing place to pop some food in, I've had nothing but trouble with tomatoes in this bed, and I think there's something wrong with the soil. So for at least 12 months, I'm just going to treat it as a flower bed. There is some fairly happy basil behind me, but we're just going to pop some sunflowers in here because sunflowers can actually pull toxins from the ground. So I'm hoping that whatever is going on here will either be solved by time or sunflowers. And I'd originally sowed these seeds a while ago, but bandicoots got into them and stole all my seeds, and they went after pretty much all the sweet peas and all the sunflower seeds. So what I did was come and harvest seeds from the sunflowers that were here, and you can see I just dumped like 5 or 6 in each little growing cell. I literally just got a handful and went and buried them, and I was like, fine, try and get me now, bandicoots. And thankfully we've got some sunflowers, so I'm not even going to bother thinning them. I'm just going to pop them in, and the ground is quite dry here, so I'm going to give it a good water once I'm done. And you can hopefully see that there is an Oya buried back here, and this is one of the downsides of Oyas, is that as the soil sinks during the course of the season, the Oya becomes exposed. And I went to great lengths to make sure that this was covered at the beginning of the season, and you can see it's uncovered by a fairly substantial amount. So there are some downsides definitely, aside from just cost, to irrigating with Oyas, but they are fairly user-friendly and really easy for people who are looking after your garden, if you're away, to come and fill up and make sure that your plants are getting some nice moisture. But they are difficult to manage. Also, you can see from a growth perspective, how do I even get in there? So I'm getting better in some cases at planting my Oyas, but some of it comes down to the fact that the things that I wanted to plant with the Oyas didn't work out. So I like to keep my tomatoes very close to the Oyas because tomatoes need a lot of water, same with cucumbers, but it didn't work out in this bed, so I just jammed a whole bunch of zinnias in, and they're quite happy. But it didn't work out in that particular instance, and we've got a stray sweet pea, so we'll give that something to climb on. I'll put that there. So seeing as there's one sweet pea, we'll pop in a few more. Okay, so we've watered that in, mulch it up, cover it up. Well, it's time for me to call it quits on today, and we didn't get as much done as I'd hoped, which is eternally the case because I'm always overly optimistic with what can actually be achieved in a day. So I've got to start packing things up and popping things away in the shed. But I thought what I would do is just quickly show you guys the results of the vinegar spraying that we did the other day when we were cleaning up this area. I've still got this whole side to go, but something my dad worked on today, which is awesome because I was scared of the snakes, is he got in here and stacked the wood and sorted out the tarps. So that's all done, but you can see the vinegar has worked really well on everything except for the Monstera, which basically doesn't even know that the vinegar happened. I even got in here and poured about half a litre of vinegar at its roots, and still no concerns. What can you do? I might have to take to it with the old shovel. So thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It's very much appreciated. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, I would really appreciate it. I'm working really hard to bring you guys 5 videos a week in an effort to build this channel, and I really appreciate everybody's recent support. Next week we might have a few less videos because I have to have a small surgical procedure, and I don't know how I'm going to feel after that. So if there's a few less, then that's why. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and seeing the update of what vinegar can achieve after a few days. And I hope you guys have found something in this video helpful, and I hope we have got on top of the blackbird issue, because if we haven't and this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Are you doing the neighborhood watch, darling? Or are you hunting for blackbirds? Hey, what you looking for? Such a good girl. You gonna go get him?